Everybody, welcome to Building Our Power. This is Gabby.
And KT.
And we're back with another episode. Make sure you follow us on all social media accounts at Building Our PWR. KT has some updates.
Hi, you guys. So basically, I'm coming on here because Gabby and I would like to donate to our 901 community fridge. We basically would like to help keep that stocked for the homeless or for people in the area who need food. So if you can, please go ahead and donate to our PayPal. That way we can purchase some food for these people. We'd also like to add some QR codes, so your money will also be going to purchasing some QR codes, stickers to put onto that food so that we can help educate the community as well with some communist propaganda, of course. Our goal right now is $150. We've made about $15 because we've sold some t-shirts on TeePublic. You can definitely get the PayPal and the TeePublic link in our bio. And so, that's really all I wanted to add. Today we are going to be finishing up our part of the Combahee River Collective. If you weren't here last episode, I'm just going to give a brief description. Basically, the Combahee River Collective was a black feminist lesbian socialist organization that was active in Boston from 1974 to 1980. The collective consisted of many people, but some of them include Audre Lorde, Barbara Smith, Demita Frazier. The collective's main argument was that both the white feminist movement and the civil rights movement were not addressing their particular needs as black women, specifically black lesbians. They're best known for developing a key document titled the Combahee River Collective Statement, which we're going to be reading, and it's actually going to be Gabby that's doing all the reading today. And for those of you that are following along, the link to the Combahee River Collective Statement is actually in the bio. We're still on part 2, and we are on, I believe, we're on the next to last paragraph. So, yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, KT. All right, so we back. Also, if you have TikTok, follow us on TikTok, Building Our PWR, because we get into it with a lot of white male leftists who was just upset about this commentary that I gave about the Marx and him not going far enough, him not being intersectional enough for me, and they had a problem with it. They sicked some black men on us, and it was interesting. But it did help us get 3,000 plays and a lot of followers, and it got to spread the word around, so we're thankful for that. So let's get right into it. So we're on the next paragraph after talking about Marxist theory. And it says, a political contribution which we feel we have already made is the expansion of the feminist principle that the personal is political. In our consciousness-raising sessions, for example, we have in many ways gone beyond white women's revelations because we are dealing with the implications of race and class as well as sex. Even our black women's style of talking / testifying in black language about what we have experienced has a resonance that is both cultural and political. We have spent a great deal of energy delving into the cultural and experiential nature of our oppression out of necessity because none of these matters has ever been looked at before. No one before us has ever examined the multi-layered texture of black women's lives. An example of this kind of revelation conceptualization occurred at a meeting as we discussed the ways in which our early intellectual interests had been attacked by our peers, particularly black males. We discovered that all of us, because we were, quote, smart, had also been considered ugly, i.e. smart ugly. Quote, smart ugly crystallized the way in which of us had been forced to develop our intellects at great cost to our social lives. The sanctions in the black and the white communities against black women thinkers is comparatively much higher than for white women, particularly ones from educated middle and upper classes. So pretty much what they're talking about is, they've come to find, it's again talking about the intersectionality. Like, this is more than theoretical. Like, this is our lives, our personal, just being a black woman, black femme presenting person in America is automatically a political statement. You wear your hair naturally. People gonna look. There's gonna be policies against your hair. You dress a certain way. People gonna make huge videos and Twitter threads about how you destroying the black community and stuff like that. And then pretty much talking about how in the black community, all this thinking and theorizing or whatever gets downplayed because we're talking about misogyny now. I'm sure this is something that you as a white feminist can see as well. There's this stereotype of the ugly lesbian feminist.
Right.
That just because they're speaking up, it makes you unattractive. You having a voice makes you unattractive. So that's kind of going into the misogyny of just being a woman and speaking your mind. Can you relate to that, Annie?
I mean, in the feminist realm of things, I think that being quote unquote smart or having your own brain outside of how to support or how to care for men, pretty much, you're automatically going to be deemed not viable to them anyway. So even if I wasn't a lesbian, even if I wasn't queer, and I was just a white woman, a straight white woman, if I was out here and not supporting men in every sense of the word, whether that be doing their laundry or whether that be, taking them back and forth to work, then they would see me as it's almost like a threat, if that makes sense.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
You know they have the stereotype of the cat lady.
Yeah.
She can't keep no man because this, that, and the third. Like that is just the worst thing in the world, not having a man. Okay, well, anyways, okay. As we have stated, we reject the stance of lesbian separatism because it is not a viable political analysis or strategy for us. It leaves out far too much and far too many people, particularly black men, women, and children. We have a great deal of criticism and loathing for what men have socialized to be in this society, what they support, how they act, and how they oppress. But we do not have the misguided notion that their maleness per se, their biological maleness, is what makes them what they are. As black women, we find any type of biological determinism a particularly dangerous and reactionary basis upon which to build a politic. We must also question whether lesbian separatism is an adequate and progressive political analysis and strategy, even for those who practice it, since it so completely denies any but the sexual sources of women's oppressions, negating the fact of class and race. So, from what I've learned about lesbian separatism, it was this big thing in second wave feminists, in which white women were like, I'm going to become a political lesbian or a political abstinent, and pretty much saying I may not even be a lesbian, but in order to not give in to misogyny or not support a man or not do anything good for a man, I'm going to get in a relationship with a woman and we will live together and support each other, and that will be the extent of our politics. And so, obviously, these girls are like, after that, then what? It's like that's such a middle class thing to do.
Literally.
We're just gonna go over here with our cats, and this is gonna be how we fight against oppression. It's like everybody else, like, okay, even if I do that, I'm living over here with my black girlfriend, and I'm still dealing with misogyny. I'm still dealing with racism. This has not improved my quality of life, besides me being in love, of course. But they're pretty much just saying, obviously, that is very naive and very privileged to even have a stance of. Are you familiar with lesbian separatism?
No, I never read about it until we actually read about it in this. But, I mean, if you're saying it's second wave feminism, then that makes sense. For me, I'm more so, like, I've read more about, like, the very beginning of not lesbian, but the very beginning of feminism, and then more so what we are doing now within feminism, as opposed to all the middleness, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I wasn't even aware that was a thing.
It is, and we'll talk about it one of these days. And then they also talked about how this biological determinism is also tricky.
Yeah.
And, I mean, now, of course, it's getting even more tricky now because, finally trans people are getting seen and noticed or whatever. And that's that kind of turf language. It's like, well, you were socialized as a man, so then you're going to act this way, you're going to act that way. But we know that just because you're born, like you come out the womb, you're not a certain way, you get socialized that way. So they're pretty much saying they're willing to put more work into their community to help educate people on misogyny than just throw them away, because Black people have more connection to our communities. Y'all white folks, like we said the other day, y'all white women are one step from being white men. So it makes sense that y'all would want to create y'all own systems, y'all own communities where you can still perpetuate whiteness, but you ain't gotta listen to a white man.
Yeah, that's something that I feel like we really need to discuss, like, as far as like our podcast and stuff goes. Like, this is kind of like a side topic, but we really do need to touch more on the type of community that white people don't have versus the community that Black people do have. I think it plays into it definitely plays into whiteness and the thought that we don't really need anyone to move forward, you know? Instead of us all coming together and saying, okay, well, as a community, we have the highest rate of violent crimes and stuff like that. Instead of each other within the community holding each other accountable, we just kind of pretend like, oh, it's a one person thing. Anyway, that's a side note, and we can have another conversation about it, but it's important.
Yeah, for sure. But obviously those are the differences, and you can see why, as Black feminists, there will always be butting heads with white feminists, because white feminists just like, well, let's create our own thing and fuck everybody else, and it's like, we can't do that. Y'all do whatever it is y'all gonna do, but whatever. Okay, so part 3, problems in organizing Black feminists. Okay. During our years together as a Black feminist collective, we have experienced success and defeat, joy and pain, victory and failure. We have found that it is very difficult to organize around Black feminist issues. Difficult even to announce in certain contexts that we are Black feminists. Yep. We have tried to think about the reasons for our difficulties, particularly since white women's movements continue to be strong and to grow in many directions. In this section, we will discuss some of the general reasons for the organizing problems we face, and also talk specifically about the stages in organizing our own collective. The main source of difficulty in our political work is that we are not trying to fight oppression on one front, or even two, but instead address a whole range of oppressions. We do not have racial, sexual, heterosexual, or class privilege to rely upon, nor do we have even the minimal access to resources and power that groups who possess any one of these types of privileges have. Exactly. White women, white feminists. Hillary Clinton, a white feminist. Oprah Winfrey is a feminist, the white brand of feminist. White people have money enough to support these causes, just like the white LGBT community, which are full of CEOs, full of big upper class, middle class people.
Yes.
That's a whole nother. They get money, they get political power, they get lobbying power. Then you get Black feminists. You got poor Black women. Where you gonna grab your resources from? So obviously it makes sense that, especially back then in the 70s, they were having a hard time. The psychological toll of being a Black woman and the difficulties this presents in reaching political consciousness and doing political work can never be underestimated. There's a very low value placed upon Black women's psyches in this society, which is both racist and sexist. As an early group member once said, we're all damaged people merely by virtue of being Black women. We are dispossessed psychologically and on every other level. And yet we feel the necessity to struggle to change the condition of all Black women. In a Black feminist search for sisterhood, Michelle Wallace arrives at this conclusion. We exist as women who are Black, who are feminists, each stranded from the movement, working independently because there is not yet an environment in this society remotely congenial to our struggle. Because being on the bottom, we would have to do what no one else has done. We would have to fight the world. Wallace is pessimistic but realistic in her assessment of black feminist position, particularly in her allusion to the nearly classic isolation most of us face. We might use our position at the bottom, however, to make a clear leap into revolutionary action. If black women were free, it would mean that everyone else who would have to be freed, since our freedom would necessitate the destruction of all systems of oppression. That's true. I mean, if black women were to truly be liberated from the things that oppress us, misogyny, racism, homophobia, classism. If we were liberated from all of that, nobody else would have no doggone struggles. Ableism. There wouldn't be nobody else. That's all it would take. But people don't even want to listen to the black women, the ones who have the most experience with all these systems of oppression, the ones you ain't got to ask, okay, well, what's it like to be a man? Let me get a man. What's it like to be a woman? Let me get a woman. What's it like to be black? Let me get a black. You could get one person, a black trans disabled woman who get all these systems of oppression working against her, and get more information and more insight than all these little people in these ivory towers whose jobs it is to theorize about all this stuff. But are they going to listen to them? No.
I think, too, I want to add, because I feel like we're kind of doing this in a broad sense, like black women, period. But a lot of these black women that were talking about this were lesbians, okay? Mm-hmm. They're lesbians and they're masculine presenting. When was the last time that anybody listened to a masculine presenting black woman? Or a masculine presenting person who has connection to womanhood? Whatever you want to call it, however you want to say it. Like, no one, never. No. You don't even see, like, you can go on to these huge black feminist people, like Kimberly, what's her last name? Foster. Kimberly Foster. And even her, within her so-called feminist little group chats that she has with people, have you guys ever seen a black, masculine, lesbian?
No.
No. And so I think it's important that we're notating that, like, really, really heavily in this, because they're the ones. Like, black masculine women, black masculine lesbians, able, disabled, whatever. They have the answers, and they've been had the answers since the 70s, obviously, before that. So, yeah. Anyway.
That's something interesting, too. And that's true, because we talk about this. Like, name one. Young M.A. Young M.A.
That's all y'all can give us.
A rapper, not revolutionary, just a regular old little rapper capitalist person. And all these black lesbian women who have been on the foreground, like, I be following some of these, like, black lesbian archive pages and stuff like that. A lot of these women I've never heard of in my life.
Literally.
And we're doing work, organizing, and helping get stuff done. But no, again, you get put in that smart, ugly category. I cannot sexually fetishize you. So you're not going to be at the forefront. You're not going to be in the pictures. You're not going to be whatever. It's a lot.
Even then, like, I feel like a lot of times, too, like, when we're talking about revolutionaries, oftentimes we only talk about, like, Audre Lorde. Like, that's literally the only person that is ever really pushed as a lesbian who is masculine presenting. And I feel like that's because, like, she was lighter skinned, and there's also the fact that, like, she wasn't, like, this super duper masculine aggressive lesbian either. And so, yeah, that's a problem in and of itself. But I do think that when we are listening and when we're reading the Combahee River Collective, you guys remember who is saying this. It's masculine presenting lesbians who have the answers and who we need to support, because you guys don't do it enough.
Exactly. Not even on the leftist space. I can't name one except myself. And I'm non-binary, but I guess I'll be putting that little thing right now, because I ain't seen nobody. Anyways, feminism is nevertheless very threatening to the majority of black people because it calls into question some of the most basic assumptions about our existence, i.e., that sex should be a determinant of power relationships. Here is the way that male and female roles were defined in a black nationalist pamphlet from the early 1970s. We understand that it is and has been traditional that the man is the head of the house. He is the leader of the house nation. Because his knowledge of the world is broader, his awareness is greater, his understanding is fuller, and his application of this information is wiser. After all, it is only reasonable that the man be the head of the house because he is able to defend and protect the development of his home. Women cannot do the same things as men. They are made by nature to function differently. Equality of men and women is something that cannot happen even in the abstract world. Men are not equal to other men, i.e., ability, experience, and even understanding. Wow, okay. The value of men and women can be seen as in value of gold and silver. They are not equal, but both have great value. We must realize that men and women are a complement to each other because there is no house/family without a man and his wife. Man and his wife. Both are essential to the development of any life. Girl! That sounds like something from straight from the Bible. For a black lesbian, where do I fit into this story? I ain't got no man. So what? And then to say that all men are not equal. Wait, y'all got some hierarchical stuff going on from the jump. It's a no for me. Anyways, the material conditions of most black women would hardly lead them to upset both economic and sexual arrangements that seem to represent some stability in their lives. Many black women have a good understanding of both sexism and racism, but because of the everyday constrictions of their lives, cannot risk struggling against them both. Okay, let's get into this. Let's get into, how a lot of times we always talk about on Facebook and stuff also like, y'all ain't built like our grandmama. Our grandmama stayed with that man 30, 40 years. Economically, they couldn't leave. Like, women had no rights. So, you're going to get kicked to the curb. You're going to be a single mom with all your kids. And what do people have to support you? Like, I can see, like, the black feminists coming over there being like, yeah, this man treating you wrong. You need to stand up to this man. You need to get your own. You need to do this, do that. And the lady's like, okay, nice, but are y'all gonna help me with that? Like, I gotta see if there was a lot of battered women shelters out there back then. Probably not as much as now.
And definitely not ones for black women.
Right. So I'm sure that was an uphill battle because, like they said, that was the one thing that kind of gave them some stability, whether it's good or bad. And then to fight racism, of course, is already scary. You having to stand up to white people who have your jobs in their hands, dangle it over your head. You better not say nothing. So I can definitely see how for black women, it was even harder. And even now, it can still be hard to reach them when it comes to this radical politics. The reaction of black men to feminism has been notoriously negative. They are, of course, even more threatened than black women by the possibility that black feminists might organize around our own needs. They realize that they might not only lose valuable and hardworking allies in their struggles, but that they may also be forced to change their habitually sexist ways of interacting with and oppressing black women. Accusations that black feminism divides the black struggle are powerful deterrents to the growth of an autonomous black women's movement. Still, hundreds of women have been active at different times during the 3-year existence of our group. And every black woman who came out of a strongly felt need for some level of possibility that did not previously exist in their lives. Okay, let's talk about that part. Because I noticed on TikTok, thankfully, some of the younger kids are starting to see that, yeah, a lot of these black revolutionaries that we prop up in our community were sexist as hell. Were rapists, were misogynists, were women beaters, were terrible homophobic people to women and gay people and all that stuff. And the good thing, going back to that, the good thing about now is with more education, more rights for women in general, women now feel more freely and readily to speak up about stuff like that. Not even in black nationalism, but just in life. Now you see more women saying, man is trash, man ain't shit, I don't even do this for a man. I'm finna live my life, this, that, and the third.
Right.
And so, you still hear some black men, some black leaders, some black leftists, some hoteps, this, that, and the third, saying that feminism is dividing. But here's my thing. Black feminism is simply saying, you're not finna treat me any old kind of way. I'm finna be your equal. I'm not your mule, like we were talking about last time. I'm not your mule. You're gonna treat me like respect. You're not finna throw me around, hit me around, do this and third. I have thoughts. I have ideas. I will be heard. If that's dividing, how? How is me talking dividing?
It sounds vaguely almost similar to how white men talk to black people in general. Like that's pretty much what that sounds like.
Yeah.
You're so divisive.
Divisive because your fragile ego, you can't stand up to criticism.
Right.
Your fifis got hurt. That's divisive. You need to go to therapy. Let's do that. Maybe if we started going to therapy, maybe we can start getting some of the balls rolling. Because right now, this feminism, this demonizing of feminism is way overplayed. Black women have a right to express their opinions. They have a say. They go through stuff black men couldn't even understand. Black trans women go through stuff black cis people couldn't even understand. So we over that. This is 2021. We listen to everybody. Okay, so they're saying even though, this was and is an uphill battle, they were still able to get people because, like I said, we know the struggles of being a black woman. We know the stuff our grandmama had to go through. We know the stuff our mama had to go through. We know the stuff that we going through dealing with these men. So I feel like now, if the Combahee River Collective came out now, it would have been a full force. Because, these conversations are starting to become more mainstream for black women. Even black women that aren't even, in the radical side of stuff. They just talking. But a lot of this radical politics has seeped into our mainstream. And now more women would be ripe for a black feminist, socialist, lesbian organization. So, we'll see. But yeah, so that is obviously we got a little bit more to go. But that was part 2 of our Monday school service of the Combahee River Collective. What do you guys think about what they said about, organizing black feminists, and also the difference between black feminism and white feminism and lesbian separatism? Have y'all heard of lesbian separatism? What do y'all think about that? Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Unless, KT, you have any thoughts?
Nope, that is definitely it.
All right, so make sure you hit us up on our social media, guys, at buildingourpwr. We're putting the TeePublic link in the description. 100% of all proceeds go to that community fridge we told you guys about and the propagandizing of that fridge. So show us some love over there, or just hit up the PayPal. And I think that's pretty much it. Hit KT up at KT Does Art. Hit me up at Gabby's Music. And we're out.